Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. As always, my name is Mike Chisholm. As always, I am excited to be here. I talk about that like a broken record. If you have listened to 2 or 3 of these in a row, you probably are sick of hearing me talk about how excited I am. Well, sorry, that's just the way it is. He Changed It is going very, very well. Please, if you haven't downloaded the app yet, give it a shot. We're still in the startup phase, but so much cool stuff is happening. The app is available in both app stores, heChangedIt.com. If you haven't subscribed to this broadcast yet, whether it's on the YouTubes or on the Apples or on the Spotifys, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to it on one, if not all of the platforms. Please share it out. We would really appreciate that because we want to move the needle when it comes to men's mental health, mental wellness. And we want to build this community where we can talk about some of the things that men are going through in this day and age. Please check out heChangedIt.com and be part of the conversation, be part of the solution, and be part of the fun, because we have a lot of fun doing this show. Today is no exception to that. I am so excited about today personally. Okay. Normally you see me in kind of the suit jacket and maybe the comic book tee or anything like that. Right now I'm full on David Letterman, my broadcast hero, the guy that I would say is my Walter Cronkite. My dad would say Walter Cronkite was his Walter Cronkite. For me, David Letterman is my Walter Cronkite. I have a huge affection for the man, for his programs. And the gentleman that we are going to have as a guest today on heCast has the same affection that I have. Let's take it up a few notches. In fact, he's given me life goals. When I realized who Jay Ryan was and what Late Night Playset was and the show he has on YouTube, and oh my God, is that part of Letterman's old set? And what the heck is going on here? And who is this guy? He's a huge Porsche collector and he's a Porsche enthusiast. He's got a wife who's going through some stuff and he is there creating awareness. And you look in his living room and oh my God, it's a late night talk show set. Jay Ryan, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here and let me pick your brain and let me introduce you to our heCast audience. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Mike. This is a pleasure. I'm thrilled that you reached out. I'm thrilled to do it. Let me know where you want to go. I'm excited about all of it.
Okay, well, let's talk about where we want to go. First off, physically, right now, where are you?
I'm sitting in, it's my office / our guest room. And that's my 20-year-old kitty cat over there on the bed who is auditing this podcast.
I too am a cat man, and I appreciate that very, very much. Now you're in California, right?
We are in Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, we're right at the foot of Universal Studios.
Okay.
That gives you any kind of geographical pinpoint.
Many folks, I'm from Western Canada, and many folks who listen to this would understand Universal Studio. Hey, I know where that is. That's where Jaws lives. And so now it's
where the Tonight Show was for a few short months as well.
Oh man, I loved Conan's Tonight Show. I loved Conan's Tonight Show so much. Now you are in the television industry.
I mean, as much as the television industry still exists, I mean, I used to be part of the television industry. Now, I guess we're podcast hosts, right?
We try to do
our podcast as much like old television as possible.
Yeah. And you're able to eke out a living doing what you do full time.
No, we're working on that. We're working on that. I mean, you alluded to it a little bit earlier when you spoke about my wife. My wife, Nicole, has multiple sclerosis. Nicole was very big in the industry that you speak of in TV and film. She was a personal publicist for celebrities and comedians and athletes and stuff. She's worked with everybody, huge names, all of the biggest names, from Chris Rock to everybody in the Judd Apatow crew, everybody in the Will Ferrell crew, all of those people. She launched Superbad. You know what I mean? She opened that movie. She worked with those kids when they were kids and not famous yet. So she was like this powerhouse in the industry. I was like a production guy. I was professionally invisible. But when Nicole got MS, she couldn't work anymore. Well, the first few years were fine. And then after a couple of years, it sort of becomes a thing. Yeah. And she couldn't work anymore. And it was becoming more apparent that we were going to have to be at home together more, the old life basically sort of crumbled before our eyes. It just sort of, whatever we were working towards, whatever we had built no longer worked for us. And so all of that began, what the hell do we do now? And that led to, this is like 3 or 4 years ago, everybody was starting a podcast. And it was like, well, you can do that from home. Well, it's just a couple microphones from Amazon, and you sit at the dining room table, and we have one of those. And that's how it all sort of started. That was the impetus for this. What has taken off since has been, I didn't see it coming. I don't know how much you know about me or my childhood, but like I was ridiculously obsessed with this subject as a kid. Like I spent all of my, and by the way, forgive me if I'm taking you away from where you want to go.
I'm riveted.
I could talk forever.
We're not going anywhere except for where this beautiful organic conversation takes us. I'm riveted to what you're talking about right now.
Okay. So my childhood, I grew up in the same town that Dave lived in when he used to do the show. So when he would talk about the guy at the gas station or the kid bagging the groceries or jogging at the high school track, that's all our town. That's my track. I knew the kid who bagged the groceries. I know the guy he's talking about at the gas station. We had this weird kind of, the community had this weird kind of ownership of Dave, because it was like whatever he was going through, we were all going through it together.
Yes.
And it was very strange. And I guess because of that and because of whatever undevelopment I had as a kid, I sort of imprinted on it, like you said, about Walter Cronkite. And for me, it was less about Dave as it was about what that show was. And for me, I'm talking about late night in particular, because that was sort of what was going on when I was in middle school and high school.
Yep.
And somehow I just imprinted on that stuff very, very deep and hard. So whatever you see now is the bookend to a childhood that was like ridiculously dedicated to the subject. Instead of doing schoolwork, I was drawing pictures, and I was failing my classes because I was spending my time in the television studio doing my own little late night show where I genuinely found an old microphone. I bought an old microphone like Dave's, and then I had it chromed to look like his, and then I had the handle made to look like his and everything and all that stuff. Yeah. I was like obsessed as a kid.
Yeah.
And so whatever you see now is like, there was 20 years off in the middle, but I'm sort of finishing a story that I started as a kid a long, long, long time ago. And I don't want to make your whole show about this, but I did something Dave related that I'm not proud of, that sort of got me away from the subject when I was 18 years old.
Yeah.
And do you know what I'm talking about?
No. I'm again, riveted. Right. Just riveted.
Well, you may want to save this for a different podcast, but I got led into I got led into the Ed Sullivan Theater one night, and the story is much longer and more complicated than just the simplicity of this. But the truth is, I ended up stealing the old-fashioned microphone that used to go on Dave's desk. It wasn't on the desk. They were redoing the theater and the whole set and everything, and it was in the basement somewhere else.
Are you talking about the old pill mic, the RCA pill mic?
Yep.
I have that tattooed on my shoulder.
No.
I'm dead serious. Dead serious.
Well, I'd be very curious to see which one it is then, Mike, because Dave had two. And the end of this story is I stole the one that he used all those years at NBC. And I found all this out afterwards, of course, and that NBC had given him to take to CBS. In 1996, my dad had just died. I was a fresh 18-year-old kid, just graduated high school. My life was in front of me. My dad passed away. And then this thing 2 weeks later happened where I snuck into the theater because they were going to redo the set.
Yep.
It's when the buildings in the background became bridges, if you remember that.
I'm actually buying one of the bridges right now to become part of our set for heCast. So I know exactly I'm dialed into what you're saying right now.
Congratulations. That's so
Thank
cool.
You. It's one of the smaller ones, but it's fan-fucking-tastic.
That's amazing. Is it like from Chris Gethard's set or something?
Well, I don't know the set designers. I can tell you that as you probably, when Letterman finished his run in New York, the next day you were seeing videos on YouTube of people, horrific videos of people just throwing out all of these things. Well, one of the production guys grabbed a couple of the bridges. It's one of the smaller ones in the background, but yeah, he grabbed one of them and he's had it ever since. For you. He loves what we're doing here for heCast, and he's going to part with it so I can have it as part of our background. All
right. So the gist of it is I snuck into the Ed Sullivan. Do you want to know the whole story? I don't want to waste your time. Of course I want to know the whole story, Jay. I'm riveted. I'm absolutely riveted. Okay. So I I gave you some of the details. I was obsessed as a kid. I had this little high school show where we used to have on local celebrities, soap opera stars, musicians. We used to have people from Paul's band on, stuff like that.
Amazing.
And I bought this microphone and I replicated it to be like Dave's, and it wasn't exactly, but it was close enough, and so that was my background, and I loved it. And all I knew was that someday I was going to go work for David Letterman, right? That's all I knew. He lived in the town. The show's over here. I'm obsessed with it.
It was destiny.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just going to happen. That's what I'm just going to do. And so this thing happens when I'm 18. My dad dies. There's going to be a new set. They're going to do this whole reveal. I'm so excited about it. My friend came to live with me for a couple months because it's just me alone in this house. My parents were divorced, so it's just me alone. And so he's with me, and we're there at 11:30 watching this Monday night, ready for the new set reveal. And a repeat came on. And I was like, what? I was like, not okay with it, right? Like a little thing just broke in my brain.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm not dealing with this. I mentioned my dad had just died. I had just gotten like a few $1,000s, and I bought like a used BMW with the money. So I said, I'm going to go take a drive. And I didn't drink or smoke or any of that shit back then. So this was like a safe thing to do, to go for a drive in the woods at midnight. Well, I needed gas, so I had to go down to the gas station, and our town closed at 8:00. Like, it was a dry town. It was just very small in Connecticut. So I had to drive down the main Route 7 to the next town, to Norwalk, to the gas station. And I did, and I'm pumping it up. And as I'm doing it, I had all of these thoughts are going through my head. Like, well, why was there a repeat? Like, what's going on? Are they, maybe they fell behind. Maybe they're still working. Maybe I could go down there and catch a glimpse. Maybe I could even sneak in. You know what I mean?
Like, oh my God. You and I think so similarly. Yeah. The optimistic manifestation, and shit ends up happening.
It's this childhood way of what if anything could happen. It's this childhood way of thinking that sometimes makes magic happen even as a young adult or an adult. So, so
I have goosebumps right now, because when it comes to manifesting, I've got 5 or 6 stories like this where people are just like, I can't friggin' believe that happened to you.
Yeah. And this is one of those stories that nobody believes.
And I love it so much, because men need to hear this stuff. So many men are at a place right now where they're just trying to find their purpose. They're beaten down, they're whatever, and they've forgotten how to dream. And sometimes when you dream, these little things like this can happen that turn into big things that impact you the rest of your life. I love this. Please continue. Oh, this is awesome.
So I'm having everything you're saying. It's almost like a little bit of mania. Like, well, what if, you know what I mean? And I'm like not even stopping myself, because like there's no one there to stop me. I'm a kid who has every excuse in the world, right? Yep. I'm an 18-year-old kid whose dad just died. Like, I'm driving this BMW. I'm having all these thoughts. So as I'm pumping the gas and putting the thing away, I look across the hood of the roof of my car, and illuminated across the street is the sign for the Merritt Parkway connector. Like, basically, it's this little light on this lone sign that says, go this way to New York City. And I grew up, again, like I told you, it's only like 45 minutes outside the city. So this is not a big deal. It's not far. It's not a time commitment. Right? I was going to go for a drive anyway. Instead of the woods, I'm going to jump on 95. Yep. Or the Merritt. So I drive down there, and like I said, it's only 45 minutes, but that's 45 minutes for me to keep doing what I'm doing. Well, what if this? Well, what if this? And I even build up the B plans of like, well, even if it's all locked up, I can jump in the dumpster, because I'm sure there's all this stuff in there, and I can grab something. Like you mentioned, 20 years later happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So I get down there, and I'm on 56th Street, and I come around the corner onto Broadway. And I go under where the marquee is, and I take a right onto 53rd Street, and those dumpsters are there right as I thought they were, and like I pictured they would be in my mind, Yep. And I parked my little used BMW in front of the second dumpster, and I got out, and it was so quiet. I'd never been. I mean, I'd been to the show a ton of times as a fan, as an audience member. I'd never been there at 1 a.m. It was silent outside of Rupert's. It was like pitch silent. Like, you could hear garbage trucks and other stuff in the city elsewhere. But other than the occasional car going down Broadway, there was no noise. So what I'm getting to is I was about to jump in this dumpster, right? Because everything was shut. Everything was closed up. And nothing I had built in my head was going on.
Right. Yes.
So I'm about to put one foot up to go like look in the dumpster. And I hear a vacuum turn on.
Oh boy. Oh no. Yep.
I swear to God, I hear a vacuum turn on. And I'm
it's like opportunity. It's like a light bulb above your head. The moment that vacuum goes on, the light bulb shows up.
I'm not proud of any of this, but that's exactly what it was. Also, if I had any idea that we would spend the whole time here, I would have definitely dressed this little corner to look better than it does currently. But so anyway, I hear the vacuum and it's coming from not the theater doors, but like one of the other doors of the theater. Yep. So I knock on that and nothing. But now that I'm there, I can tell it's right on the other side of the door. So I knock a little bit harder. Sure enough, the door opens. It's just a cleaning guy vacuuming a rug that is the size of this table. He's in this little security vestibule that I'd never seen or been in before. That it's just the door I was at and then another door and like a little security desk. So I just said something like, "Oh, running behind schedule" or something like that to the guy who opened the door. He just let me in, no problem. There was nowhere to go but through the next door. So I'm winging it and I go in the next door. Do you have any idea where I am?
That's exactly beside the studio. You're walking into the studio.
I'm literally on the stage of the Ed Sullivan Theater where the guests walk out.
Yep.
I can see the new chairs and desk as I'm walking into the theater. Now, none of the theater lights are on. Like it's just overhead, none of the show lights are on. Yep. But I'm in the Ed Sullivan Theater and there's 2 or 3 other guys in the audience vacuuming as well. There's just a cleaning crew. No crew is anywhere to be seen. And I'm in the Ed Sullivan Theater and I'm on the stage and I didn't know what to do or where to go. And I didn't want to the last thing I wanted was for somebody to be like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" So I just pretended like I was supposed to be there. I went and like looked at the music and I pretended like I was tuning the drums or the piano or something like that. Because I knew how to play the piano and the drums. So I literally just started doing that stuff. And I played Anton's drums and I played Paul Schaefer's organ and piano. And one by one, Mike, these guys who didn't pay me any attention in the world because I looked like I was doing stuff or because I was doing stuff, one by one, they left. Wow. And after maybe 10, 15 minutes, I'm alone in the Ed Sullivan Theater overnight, just like the kid's fantasy, just like, like being locked in the mall or in school or whatever it is, someplace you're not supposed to be.
Yes.
And I just started exploring. I played with the cars on the bridges before America even saw the bridges. I was convinced the set wasn't done because I was like, they've got to put some buildings in front of these bridges. And of course they didn't.
No,
that sounded Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And so, and I checked out the new desk and the thing was, Mike, the microphone wasn't on the new desk.
No,
everything else was there. Everything else was in place, ready for the show. But the
was Dave's chair there?
Yeah. This was in the days before they did that. This is still
before they started moving his chair. Because they started moving his chair when the show was finished for people like us who would get behind the desk. And I've been there too, except I sat on a stool because Dave moved his chair every time. But that was before that.
Do you know the story as to why that happened? I got this all from Kathleen Ankers. No. I used to call and interview her when I was in high school because I wanted details on the set and the microphone and stuff like that. When they left NBC, they stole the desk, the chairs. The microphone was given to them by the audio department at the last party, and Dave's chair. So the 3 blue chairs and the desk, they stole them. This is what Kathleen told me. They had to literally, I don't know if they actually paid a freight elevator guy money or whatever, but she said that they had to literally steal them out of the building because supposedly these are the same chair. The CBS chairs were supposedly the same chairs, just recovered as a sort of a little middle finger to NBC who said you can't do anything the same.
I didn't know that. That is
I didn't know it either. And she's the one who told me and somebody else did corroborate it. So in my mind, it's true.
Okay.
So with that though, I do know for a fact the audio, the microphone is true because Glenn Arbor, who I used to work with at Conan, gave me that whole story.
Right.
And Dave's chair, back to you, the whole reason we're talking about this, Dave's chair was from NBC as well. And over time at CBS, just because I guess years of use, it wore out, but they couldn't get another one because if they were still at NBC, they just go to another office and yank one because they were in every floor of every office. But at CBS, they didn't have one. So there was this whole thing about having to find the closest chair, the next chair, the same chair. And I guess the same company basically sent the new version of that chair, which was very, very different. But from that day forward, it became, well, only Dave uses this chair.
That's when that started.
That's what I was told by Kathleen Anchors. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
And she said that that was the last piece of NBC to go because, of course, the microphone had already been taken. So back to that.
Oh, I love this. I love mischief. My wife and I, when we got married, we actually had a line put into our vows that we promised to be each other's partners in mischief. And knowing like you did not have any intent of hurting anybody or anything like that. Your fandom spilleth over, and I get it. And a little bit of mischief. This is the best story I've heard all week. Like this, I'll agree with you so far.
But as it goes on is where I think I probably harbored a tremendous amount of guilt my whole life and didn't really realize that I could let that go until we started doing this project now, which is why I say the bookends. So
yes, sir.
The microphone's not on the desk. I'm alone in the Ed Sullivan Theater. I have explored every square inch of studio space. I have gone up the spiral staircase. I've done every catwalk move. I've recreated all of the camera bumper spots. Like I know where the guy was with the camera for all those things. Wow. Eventually, I had explored out. It had been an hour or so. And then I found a staircase that went down. And I was
basement. Like, oh. Yes.
So I now, basically where the blue doors were, there was another staircase behind that went down underneath the stage. Do you know where I'm talking about?
I do. I know exactly where you're talking about.
Okay. So I had never been down there. I'd never seen it before. This is nighttime. So all of what I assume are offices off of that were locked and closed. I shouldn't say locked, like I checked every single one, but I mean, you know what I mean? They were shut.
Yeah.
And not a single one was open. Can you believe it? But that took me into some areas where I sort of lost my orientation because I don't know, maybe the cameras hadn't been down there before, so I didn't know where I was, whatever. So I was following them along and going through like different doors where there weren't even lights on, but I could see through the little glass panel in the door that there was a light on the other side. So I would like go down this long tunnel, like hallway in the pitch black to get to a little sliver of window at the end. That's like, there's fluorescent lights on the other side. And I do. And I realize at this point I'm on the Broadway side. I've now left the Ed Sullivan Theater and I'm now over at like the Ed Sullivan Theater office building side, but I've done it in the underground catacombs of the building, if that makes sense.
Right. And is the elevator near where you are?
Probably at this point, because you'll know where I am now. So I find myself at the bottom of the stairs, which are the lobby stairs. And now I'm at the door to the Hal Gurney Memorial Control Room.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Maybe not Memorial. He had just retired. He's not dead still. But Hal Gurney Control Room.
Yeah.
And I go in there and I don't, I'm not touching any buttons or anything, but I'm literally mapping the whole thing. And I go in through another door and I'm now in the audio room and and then I go through another one and I'm in like a video room or a sound effects room or something. And in that room on a counter underneath like some cabinets, like basically like on a test bench, basically was the microphone. Now this isn't it, but just for the sake of having a prop, there was the microphone. Now this was my first time seeing it in person. And I couldn't believe it. And I went right up to it. And it was so broken and beat up and crunked is the only word I could use to describe it. It was dented and cracked and chipped. And it was so effed up that wasn't even anything that I think in my mind, I probably told myself split second that this was like a backup one. But it was the same type of thing, but it was like a backup. That's why it wasn't in the theater or whatever.
Whatever it needs to tell yourself to lift that up, whatever it takes to get you to say, okay, I'm going to make this decision now.
You got it. It's the one on this shoulder and the one on this shoulder. The one on this shoulder had taken a vacation or a coffee break or something. Because over here it was like, yeah, that's yours. Take it. Before I even knew it, because I had one at home and I was already obsessed with this thing. I took it apart in 2 seconds. It was in my pockets and I was out of there.
Wow.
I literally followed that, went in that same dark tunnel, whatever, got up and I went out the same way I came in without ever stopping. It was almost like, boom, got the prize, out. It was so bizarre, like a military operation. So the moment I'm outside and the door closes, I'm now committed to doing what I just did. Yes. There is no going back because the cleaning guys are all gone. There's no one to let me in again.
Yep.
So I'm in the car and I drive around the corner. I drive straight down 53rd Street all the way to the West Side Highway, and I take a right and I stop. I pull over on the side right before it gets to the highway part. And I take all the pieces out of my pocket and I put them in the passenger seat and I flip the light on and I put it together. And there's the microphone sitting on the passenger seat of my E30 BMW with a little light on it now. And I'm like, this is all starting to set in. Like it was shock and it was excitement and adrenaline a few minutes ago. And now it's very, very real. And I'm still excited. No kidding. And I'm still shocked, but it's all like sinking in. So, so I drive home very, very, very quickly. And I wake my buddy up, Brian, who's staying with me, who I said, I'm going to go for a drive. He thinks I'm going for a drive in the woods. I wake him up, I turn the light on, and he's like, what's up? And I show him the thing. And he's like, yeah, I know. You're obsessed with that thing. And I'm like,
no, you don't get it.
Now, my dad had just died. I'm in this house in the woods in Wilton. We just had the hardwood floors redone right before. So I'm slipping and sliding around the house in my socks. And I get the other microphone. And then I come back slipping and sliding into his room. And I go, huh? And I got two now. Huh?
Yeah.
And he sits up in bed and he goes, holy geez. And he was up. And we stayed up till about 5 a.m. Well, I told him every freaking detail of what had just happened to me to corroborate it, because nobody would ever believe it. And if I didn't take the microphone, nobody would ever believe it.
Yes.
So I told him every detail of the new set, everything. I even drew him a picture of like what it looks like and it's brooded and all this stuff.
Yep.
And then eventually we went to bed and he had to go to work the next day, and cut to, it's the longest day of my life. I don't know if I slept at all. And eventually we're getting to 11:30 the next night. Right. So it's Tuesday now.
Yeah.
And we do get the new set and the unveil, and Martha Stewart's there to drive the final nail in the set and all of this. It's nothing but hoopla, right? Nothing but jokes written about the new set. I don't know if you remember, they did the show from the lobby for a week before.
Absolutely.
Do you remember all that?
Absolutely.
With
I'm a big Late Show fan.
Like now sitting in our living room, in our dining room.
Yeah.
So the show comes on, and after the monologue, after Martha Stewart, after all the hoopla and everything, eventually Dave sits at the desk and he says, so there was a couple of things that bothered me about the new desk. And he explains that one of which was the window. There was no window behind him. So whenever he threw a pencil,
for the cards. Yep.
Exactly. And the other one was this microphone on the desk, and they had put another old fashioned microphone, but it had a different stand and it was not right. And it was really just kind of in your face. And it was a problem for Dave.
It was the tall one. Yeah.
Because this other one is the other problem is this microphone here. It's too tall. And Paul goes, yeah, what's up with that? And Dave goes, well, last night, the microphone we've had here for, 3 years or whatever. And we had an NBC for 13 years, whatever. Last night that was stolen. Huge haw over the crowd. And I'm sure you could find this clip to put into your podcast if you want to.
Yes.
And yeah, last night that was stolen and whatever. So he goes into a brief thing about that. But Brian, my friend, he erupts off the couch, goes, he's talking about you. He's so excited. And I couldn't be more like just a snip. I mean, I just sunk into the couch, soul deflated, right? Because I'm like, okay.
I heard Dave.
It wasn't a backup. I totally just alienated the hero. Like I really screwed myself over here, let alone him, let alone any bad I did in the universe, So that was Tuesday night. Now I feel awful. Phil Hartman's the guest. He goes, thanks for being here, Phil. Thanks for breaking in our extra tall microphone, stupid stuff. All week they had written different comedy bits. One night, Dana Carvey comes in and steals a bit of the new set to take to his show.
Yeah.
One night, a fan club president who was dressed in the same clothes I was the night of the night of the incident comes in and won't leave, weird stuff. So I decided, all right, well, I've got to do something, obviously. So what the hell do I do? And again, Heckle and Jekyll, fucking, excuse my language, but me and my buddy Brian, he was a very wonderful, loyal friend, but imagine Good Will Hunting, neither one.
No.
This guy's still on vacation.
Yeah. So he takes his place and it's no bad. Yeah. Oh no, I gotcha.
Exactly. So what we end up doing is, what I end up doing is deciding that I'm going to try to return to Dave my microphone from the high school show I did, which is a real RCA microphone. That part's the same, but like the holder is handmade because I had it made at a welding place and then I feed it into, you would never mistake the two.
No.
Dave wouldn't look at it and go like, oh, there's my microphone.
Right.
But I decide, oh, this is what I'm going to do. Now I figure, how the hell do I get it to him? Do I send it in an unmarked box to the show? Do I send it with a letter that has the story? Do I go to the show with the thing and an explanation? Like, what do I do? And this was the thought process throughout, even when I was planning on giving his back. Anyway, this kid, this undeveloped kid decides, because it's only a mile away, well, I'll just cut around all of that and give it to Dave at his house on Saturday.
Because you live in the same town that Dave lives in.
It's a mile away. No, I don't know if he's going to be there or whatever, but this is the idea that I come up with my buddy. And we're like, yeah, that'll totally work. And then I think to myself, I'll never get away with it, but it will elicit the conversation, which I don't have the balls to come out and be like, look, I got snuck in and I lost my head and I took the thing and I'm sorry.
Wow.
Can I have an internship?
Can I have an internship?
Because you remember, this is where we are in my life. I had just graduated the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, which was like, an 8-week course for the summer after high school. Yeah. I was going to go work for Dave.
Yep.
Oh my God. And it was hilarious. So I really do it. Like I decide that at all right, 10, 11 o'clock, whatever, I'm going to go over there. So Brian again is still at the house and he sees me off. I take like 3 different wrong turns to make the ride getting there longer because I cannot figure out what the hell I'm going to say to get it through the buzzer to get in the gate to give him the microphone.
Yes.
Now I know where the house is. That part's easy. And the strange part about it is his house is not where he lives now. So I'm very comfortable talking about it. And it's not even laid out the same way anymore. But I think probably for security purposes, the place was rerouted. It was an old farmhouse that had like the garage in the front and the front door in the front, very traditional. But I think because of Dave and security, they had the driveway rerouted into the backyard.
And stalkers. I mean, it's not like he didn't have stalkers. He had the gal who famously snuck into his house.
So sadly, this is also that same time. Okay. This is the 90s.
Yep.
And he was always on TV, like down at the local courthouse, because he's not pressing charges with this woman who had ailments and stuff. So anyway, it's all that same time.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think how the heck I'm going to get through the call box to get through the gate. And I've never seen what's through that gate other than a driveway that goes up into the backyard. I've never seen it. You know what I mean? You can't see that driving by.
Yeah.
So eventually, because I can't just drive in circles, eventually I get there after like a 10-minute drive becomes a 20-minute drive. And as I'm pulling up, I got nothing. I got absolutely nothing. And as I get to the buzzer, roll my window down, I look forward, the gate's wide open.
Wow.
Like, not like Dave just drove through it and I can tailgate up. I mean, like, it's just open today. And I don't think it's ever been open. Like, I don't imagine it's normally open.
This is one of those things where there are no coincidences. Like, I truly believe in manifestations like this, where there are some things that are just so perfect and there are no coincidences. Wow. Crazy.
So now I just put it back in gear and I drive up the driveway because I think, well, I got nothing here. And at least if he sees me, he'll see I have the thing.
Yep.
And then, you know what I mean? I'm not a threat.
No.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So
at least that's what you're telling yourself before they stick the dogs on you.
Totally. And my heart, oh my God, I was not scared or nervous in the Ed Sullivan Theater. That happened out of nowhere. I didn't have a chance to get nervous. You know what I mean? Like, it was like a holy crap, this just happened. And here I am. Yeah. This one, like, I couldn't
you're
take
present.
It, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Well said. So now I get up into the backyard and I see what's going on. Now I have a viewpoint. I'm at a higher level and I can see that there's a turnaround now in the backyard with another set of garages because he's a car collector. And there's a swimming pool truck in the driveway in the turnaround. He was having his pool filled in the backyard.
Here we go. Yep.
Only reason the gate's open. And in my mind, that only happens like but once a year, which adds to the synchronicity of it all.
Yep.
So now that I'm in the backyard, I'm sure this is very easy for someone who lives there and knows the lay of the land, but looking around quickly, I don't see a way to get into, there's no place to knock. I'd have to walk down the driveway, out the gate to get to the front door to, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing.
It's not apparent where the main entrance to this house is.
Right. And the garage doors are closed. So I'm, you know what I mean? Like I'm not going in there. So I see on the side, there's a screen porch, and I have a screen porch at my childhood home. And I just left a place with a screen porch. I know how that works, but I also know that if he's not in it, I have to go into the screen porch in order to knock on the other door. Are you nervous yet?
I'm 100% nervous and
okay?
excited and all of it.
I'm 40 years old now, and in my 40s, I should say, and I still get nervous when I tell this story. So I'm looking around and I see the screen porch, and I go, "That's my only move. It's 3 steps up. It's a door. I'm going to go there." So I again, here's the scene. I look down at the passenger seat. Now it's my microphone. Yeah. And I'm now completing the circle, right? From a week ago almost. So I pick it up, I take a couple deep breaths, and I get out of the car, and now I'm walking on the gravel driveway over to this screen porch that may or may not have a Dave in it. Of course I knock, and of course it doesn't. So I've got to now go in. Now I open the door, and now I'm up the stairs and in the screen porch of his home, which is not like our screen porch, which is more of a sun porch that we use like a couple times in the summer for barbecues. Yes. This one's got furniture in it and stuff. It's clearly like a furnished room of the house that is used.
We've now gone from trespassing to breaking and entering.
Is entering anyway.
Entering.
So now, now I'm at the plate glass window to the inside. Now I'm looking into the great room of his house. It's the living room. It's the TV. It's the dining area. It's the stairs to go upstairs. I'm looking into the house, and I'm knocking on the window, and I've got the microphone. And very quickly, Dave comes into view, and he comes over to the door even more quickly, and he opens it just a tad.
Oh my God.
It's glass, so we can see each other, but he opens it just a tad with the tip of the cap and goes, clearly I'm not the pool man, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Who clearly he was expecting. And he goes, "What can I do for you?" With a tip of the, "What can I do for you?" And I said, I don't even remember what I said. It was just gibberish, blah, blah, blah. Mr. Letterman, I used to do a show down the hill at the high school, and whatever. You mentioned your microphone was stolen, blah, blah, blah. I want to donate this one to you in the show or whatever.
Oh my God.
And I mean, absolutely ridiculous and so transparent. Like if it were real, why would he be nervous? Why would the kid be nervous?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
In the day. Anyway, we went back and forth for a couple. He said, I can't accept this. I can't accept it. It's very nice, but I can't accept it. And we went back and forth, and I was like, "Well, no, I graduated last year, and I just did the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. You know, we don't do the show anymore. Yep. You mentioned yours was stolen. It's not yours, but it's really close." And when I said it's not yours, but it's really close, he took it. He took it from my hands, like I, held it out, and he took it. And once it was in his hands, and he turned it around, and he goes, "It is. It's really close, actually." And it was because of the handle that I had made, like the holder.
Yeah, yeah.
And once it was in his hands, I was like, I think I got him. I think I did this. I think I closed this deal. And he had it in his hands for a second. And what felt like about 3 minutes to me was probably
3 seconds,
10 seconds. Yeah, probably 10 seconds. And I think now I'm an adult. I think it was probably him sizing up. I think he knew exactly what was going on. And
he was putting two and two together.
I think he was deciding in real time what to do about it. Yep. Like, do I ruin this kid's life, or am I nice like I was with the woman who used to break into his house and I didn't press charge, whatever. So
yes,
he goes, the thing is, I thought we were going to do this in the other room. So I have another prop to show. I can go get it, or we can go in the other room, and that's your choice.
Let's go in the other room.
To finish this
Now's
story.
the perfect time to go into the other room. Let's do that.
All right. So I'm going to finish this story on the road, on the way.
Yes.
So he goes, all right. I will accept this. I will accept this. But wait right there. I got to get something for you. And excuse me while I kill the studio music right now. Here we go. And he goes, wait a second, I got to get something for you. And this is where I think you're going to be really interested, Mike, because the only thing I wanted and coveted in the world more than that microphone, and I'm going to put it on for you. Well, hang on. I saw him coming down. Uh-oh, you still there?
I'm still here, but
went low battery, so I'll have to plug in a second. But The only other thing I wanted, and he comes down, he goes into the house, and now I'm alone on the porch, right? And I'm looking into the thing, and I'm just like, holy cow, he's calling the New Canaan Police Department. I'm positive.
Yeah.
He goes, you wait right there. He goes up the stairs, goes out of view. I take a peek around the backyard again. I turn around, he's coming back down the stairs, and he's unwrapping something, and I recognize what it is immediately because it's the only other thing that I wanted as much as that microphone. And he had me put it on there on the porch, and he goes, well, you and I, he goes, I wear an XL and you and I are about the same size. So this ought to be pretty good for you. And he gives me this, has me put it on the porch.
Man.
And he goes, there you go. And he sent me on my way. So I got the microphone. I got a meet and greet one-on-one with David's house. And then Dave gave me from his personal house a late show jacket. Oh now you talk about confusing. You talk about emotionally confusing.
I think it might.
Emotionally confusing. I got the payoff for doing all the crimes.
Yeah.
And I'm shutting this around because I want to show you the bookend too. That's the beginning of this story. Oh, and then on Monday, if you couldn't put this together, on Monday, my microphone was on his desk for the next 10 years.
Oh my God.
From my high school. So when you say you have a tattoo on your back, I'm very curious if it's the NBC mic or the one that I made. And if it's got the little red meatball on it, it's the one I made because the one before it didn't have it.
I can't wait to explore this.
So do you want to see it without further ado?
Okay. So let's talk about what it is that's filling your time now and how this has really evolved. Let's show everybody the other side of the bookend. What's in your other room?
And I'll tell you this. So when we started this podcast by talking about my wife and how, life got crazy when she got MS and we had to do something else. Not only the podcast, we had decided that this Letterman story was in the back of my mind and we needed to get this out. I needed to either give the mic back to Letterman, apologize, something. And that sort of that was the universal unlock. When we decided to do that and started getting other people involved, like a production company, to try to actually make this happen. The universe, do you ever see The Dark Crystal? The universe all of a sudden started to conspire in our favor. And a museum, which had been given these assets by The Late Show in the 90s, basically the night that I broke in, all of a sudden said, hey, is there any interest in the Letterman assets? Because we're looking to make some room.
I've got goosebumps right now. Oh, got to say something so it goes back to you. Oh my God. Oh my God.
What do you think? Crazy, right?
Yeah, I don't envy often, and I don't envy right now. I'm excited by this. That being said, if ever anyone needs to take it off your hands, if ever, allow me to be part of that lottery, please. This is unfucking believable that you have this. And not only that you have this, but you have leveraged it and turned it into what the current phase of what it is that you're doing is. And I think that, my love for Letterman, this has gone down the Letterman path, but this kind of stuff leaves clues. And I mean, people can take adversity and they can react one of two ways. They can focus on the adversity. They can focus on what they're going to do about it. And I look at what you're doing and how much your passion has taken you and what it has given to you. And I'm blown away by this. You've got Dave's mic. You've got Dave's desk. The chairs were from the old set too.
Oh yeah, you bet. Chris Farley. Remember Chris Farley tumbling over? I've broken your equipment.
That's the yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have that in your house.
Drew Barrymore stood right here on this desk.
Yes.
And wished Dave a happy birthday. So we don't have it set up exactly the same because we're trying to kind of, make our own sort of footprint here.
Yeah.
And that was a choice. Obviously, we could switch it around and we have for special occasions. But that's the desk, too, that Bill Murray spray painted Dave across the first night.
Yes.
And
let's go to what happened a couple of weeks ago. You had fucking Jay Leno on your set.
How funny is that, right? Isn't that great?
Never a part of this desk of Dave. Like the history there is unbelievable.
I tell you, it was very cool to me. And he's a friend of ours.
Yeah.
But he's a car friend,
right?
Yeah. He's a car friend. So I don't think he really knew what to make of it. We told him, that we have the Letterman set. I told him that's why it was taking me a while to ask him to do it and stuff. Because I wasn't sure how he'd react.
Yeah. Absolutely. But
it was great. It was amazing because we talked late night the whole time.
Wow.
And this is the interesting thing. He has sat in those chairs before, if they're the late night chairs, but he never was on the Late Show, of course.
Right.
And beyond that, this is the Emmy-winning Late Show set. This is the only Late Show set that ever won an Emmy, and it's from the time when Dave was beating Jay, the first few years.
Absolutely.
So it's really wild that, even though these assets weren't used for very long, they were actually seen by more people because it was 30 million people in the beginning or whatever. Yep. Pretty wild.
I'm so excited by this story. I'm so excited how this happened. And I'm really grateful that we took this turn to get to where we're at. Because at the end of the day, you're figuring out ways to do this full time. Tell us about your show. Let me plug your show too. What is it that the show is about?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, when I told you we wanted to start a podcast, that was harder than we thought it would be for us because the whole pot of it all, keeping into one small topic, was difficult for both my wife and myself. We'd probably have 3 really successful podcasts if we broke ours up into actually cars, comedy, and life and wellness. But the truth is, we mix it all into one kind of variety show where we have comedians, we have car guests, we have wellness experts, we have cannabis experts, people who are alternative medicine experts. Because of my wife, who isn't sitting next to me, but usually is. She's in the sidekick role,
and she's there, and every bit a part of this show is as you and the set really are. The set's a character too.
Yeah, without a doubt. If it weren't for her, she's the Ed McMahon that actually makes the soup work. If it weren't for her getting the joke, I don't know that other people would.
Right.
And that's the other thing. No matter what, all of this, we're not taking it too seriously. We got here on a whim. I can't believe we're here. It's been a hell of a ride already. One of our first guests, the most amazing, talented Carol Leifer. I'm sure you know Carol Leifer.
Yep.
Her only advice to us was enjoy it. She's like, it's going to be a ride. Enjoy it. I was like, wow, that's somebody who's been there and done it.
And then
that's
some.
Good advice.
Yeah. And I think that we live in a time right now where it's really easy to move away from the idea of enjoying something. It's so easy to, one of my biggest life mottos is I don't try and focus on the problem. I focus on the solution.
Right.
And it's really easy right now to get distracted and just focus on the problem and take your pick of problems. My God, how many problems are out there that people could latch onto and attach an entire state of being to?
Yeah.
And it's sometimes the harder thing is to rise above that. Look at your wife. You see her health degrade. I went through something very similar with my wife a few years ago. Thank goodness it wasn't MS. Turned out to be Lyme disease, but that had its own set of challenges. Our granddaughter spent, 5 months in Children's Hospital. We were down there in a foreign city with her. We got a book coming out about it. That book is a result of taking negatives and learning lessons and then trying to turn that into a positive. Jay, it looks like you've taken your entire life and wrapped it around that entire concept.
Yeah, you got it, man. Once you were talking about before, just a moment ago, we call it zoom out, us particularly. Once you zoom out and you get the wider perspective, none of the small shit matters anymore. And it's not a perspective I ever necessarily thought I needed or wanted, but I can't imagine going back the other way. And once you get to a place of at least having the ability to zoom out, even in moments of strife, you figure out that all of the little details don't matter so much, and that we are all in this together, and suddenly love and joy sort of trump all.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing. We're just trying to keep her happy and joyous because that keeps her in a healing place in her, her own body. Autoimmune diseases are rough. It's the cells are fighting against each other as though they're enemies. And that doesn't work for anybody or anything. Yeah. Whether it's zoomed in at a cellular level or zoomed out, we kind of have to find some harmony. And that's all we're trying to do. It's funny. This whole thing happened and we kind of became hippies a little bit. Not really like that. I mean, we're still in the capitalist society, of course, in which we all live, but there's some sort of hippy dippy elements of whatever will be, will be. Yep. You can't control it. Like all of that stuff that I'm grateful to have the perspective now.
Well, gratefulness is one of those things where it's a silver bullet, and it's a hack. It's a life hack. If you find yourself in a place where there's anxiety or trauma, traumas from the past, anxieties of fear of the future, whatever. Yeah. If you can lock yourself into a place of gratefulness, and really, really get to that place and get to being present and what you are grateful for, all that other shit just kind of melts away. And it's almost like kryptonite to some of that negative shit that can come in, those fears that can come in.
Yes. And the magic comes from that place. Once you melt everything away, anything's possible. And that's that childhood whimsical thing of me driving down to the Ed Sullivan Theater. I mean, that was kind of the same thing. Once we said, and if we give it back to Dave, remember all these things are possible. And literally 2 weeks later, we get a phone call. It is weird. It is definitely weird, but we're all connected. We are all connected. It's all connected. I don't want to be all hippy dippy to that level and extent, but we're all connected, Mike. There's a reason we're doing this today. There's a reason we found each other.
Yep. I could not agree more.
There's a reason you wore your yellow jacket, because I probably wouldn't have told the whole story unless you had your pants jacket on there.
Oh man. Yeah. And I mean, it's so cool. I just had a podcast guest on recently where he and I've got some similar interests, and it's like a fisherman can always recognize another fisherman. And
and we know that scent.
Yeah, it's the truth. The moment I saw the first time I saw your show, when I literally stumbled across it, I'm like, what the hell is this? Because I fashion myself as a pretty big Letterman enthusiast. It's like, okay, all right,
we're hidden on the internet. Nobody knows about us. The truth is, Mike, this thing was not very good for a very long time. And only recently has it become palatable to where we're trying to push it out there to people.
Wow. Well,
if you look at it in the beginning, it's just a husband and wife working out their shit.
Yeah. Sometimes I think this app that my wife is building, he changed it, is the same thing. It's her, It's her taking her life and saying, okay, hey, let's figure out a way to fix my husband.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a riot.
Well, let's talk about wives for a second. And I mean, we got a lot of guys who are listening to this that are married and all that kind of stuff. Like, I've got a wife who is like, if you look at this, okay, clearly, if you know what this stuff is, I'm far down the path of fandom for something. And I think about us guys who have these passions and have these domestic partners who give us the leeway to really lean into the things that we love. Did it take a while for your girl to kind of understand?
No, this is a very good question. And this is where I think you're not going to get the answer you expect. I think we're a little unique because our life torpedoed itself before we made the choice to do this. Okay. So it was almost like there wasn't any type of, no one had to be convinced or anything. It was more like the universe laid out the red carpet for us. We're like, well, it only makes sense for you to do this. So we did. And then it was like, well, it only makes sense for this to happen. And then it did. And then, you know what I mean? All of the things have been sort of happening.
Yeah. It was lily pads that you hopped along to get to where you're at.
Yeah. You know how it is. Life feels like we're doing this, and I guess we are. But when you think of those memories and you look back at the long run, it's a straight arrow of those lily pads. So yeah, I don't know. There was no convincing. I didn't have to sell her on anything because also, and this may be worth mentioning, this was never the intent. This grew here like a fungus. I mean, it started, like I mentioned, just the two of us at the table. But the more we got into the Letterman of it all, and then my story and the whole thing, and then it became like, well, let's mold all this into one project instead of having multiples. And it became this. It became this. You know, I didn't. The studio didn't just look like this overnight.
No.
You saw the wide shot before.
100%.
And then the other thing that people might not realize too is because of my TV background, this is actually a real working air studio. It's not just a podcast deal. So if you look, I have it shot at the monitor right there. Yep. But I mean, here's camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, 4, the wide that we usually have here. Everything is going on, and I can cut it and put it out live, and it's changed everything. It's changed what we do. It's changed the element of podcast to be into something else, and we feel like we're finding something. I'm telling you, I think it's TV on the internet, and I think that's the future. And I know that sounds strange, but I think it's old school TV available on the internet.
That's not a far stretch, because I think that it hybrids. You talk about nostalgia and things, and then you combine it with new technology, just the same way that podcasts are akin to the old radio shows from back in the day.
100%.
Like, they build into each other. So though that makes a lot of sense to me. I got studio envy, and I've got our head technical director is my stepson, who's a phenomenal videographer, and it's a massive feather.
Your setup looks pretty good there to me.
It's coming, but it's not, like, again, life goals. I'm looking at Jay here and I'm going, okay. And Ozzy was even saying to us earlier, hey, I've got this idea for how we can set this up. And we know we got the bridge coming and all this kind of stuff. I envy the fact that you can walk down there and you've got a TV ready studio, and you can literally broadcast at any time and your broadcast ready. That's phenomenal.
That to me is the coolest part. The fact that it is literally an actual production facility, because like we had Jay here. I asked Jay like 4 different times to do the show. Once I finally asked him to do it, I asked him 4 weeks in a row. He's, like I said, he's a friend. So we see him every Sunday. We go to the same place and hang out and have breakfast every single Sunday.
Yep.
4 weeks in a row. It was the first week. It was, oh yeah. What is it again? And I told him, oh, it's the Letterman's. Like, oh yeah. Okay. And then the next week, okay. None of that. Shit. Why did I start telling you this story? Oh yeah. So, and then on that 4th week, he goes, oh yeah, let's do that. He goes, you want to do it tomorrow? And I was like, yes.
Yeah, you're ready.
Because we can. Yeah. Because we can. If somebody said, hey, I'm in town and we just got done with this thing early, but, we could record something if you want, I can say yes and just push a button and fly it. It's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing that we're there, Mike, technologically and universally speaking.
Okay. So we're going to be at an hour and 6 minutes here. And I want to be mindful of your time and our crew's time and all that stuff. Normally we're 45 minutes to an hour. Before I get to, I've got 2 things I want to bring up real quick.
Sure.
Before I get to that, can we do this again sometime, please? In some way? Yeah,
absolutely. I feel like I monopolized this whole thing by telling my childhood story. So I feel like I ruined your podcast.
No. Because to me, like, again, the fisherman, like my Letterman story, which is my own unique version of my like kind of brush with the show and all that stuff. And since the jackets and all this cool stuff have, in my mind, cool stuff have happened, I love hearing other people's, and that I'm riveted by that. Success leaves clues. I've always had people in my life, and Jay, I don't know if you're this guy or not, but I have always had people in my life. When the book The Secret came out, I had people walking up to me with copies of it. Before it was even a book, it was a CD or a DVD that people were passing around. And they would say to me, watch this. And I'm like, well, what is it? And they're like, it's you, it's your life. Because my favorite bands I've met, I've gone through, I'm from Western Canada, not even Vancouver. I'm outside of Vancouver. And I've had these crazy experiences, including the Letterman story. And manifesting has to do with that whimsy, that
you're making it happen.
Oh my God.
It doesn't just happen.
I wish we could bottle it and give it to people, because everybody deserves that feeling that you've hit on here. So this is,
I think you're doing it. I want you to do your, don't sell yourself short though. I think you're doing it. I think you simply by doing this show is telling people that that's possible, which therefore is giving them the opportunity to have it. Whether what they do with it is up to them. But you are providing a service, I believe, by simply doing this and sharing what you believe. So kudos to you, sir.
I appreciate that, man. And I mean, we've had so many guys reaching out and talking about, I love having life coaches on here and counselors and some of the different guests that we've had. But every once in a while, I get to have somebody that is 100% like along the vein of what I love. And that's when that passion comes out. And I think that passion can ignite for guys that listen to this. I think that many times there are these guys that have kind of had their paint by numbers life where they've gotten, out of high school, they went to college, they got themselves a job with benefits, they got the wife, the kids, and then they're in their 40s, like I am, mid 40s, 45 years old. And they realize, well, what's next? What's my purpose? What's this? And
yes. The midlife crisis.
Yes, it is a midlife crisis. And I mean, sure. I've experimented with this idea. I want to have a show called My Gen X Midlife Crisis, because our midlife crisis is different than our father's midlife crises are. And they
could pinpoint what theirs are. Ours is a big question mark.
It is. In many ways, it is.
They were all able to say, well, it was the war. Grandparents, well, It was the Depression.
Absolutely.
Us, it was our parents' shit.
It was the being the kids of the baby boomers who were they consider themselves the greatest generation, And I mean, you think about Gen X and grunge and all of that stuff. It's interesting watching us in midlife now. And part of that is the fallout of that is, and where society is right now, cancel culture, privilege, all of these things that are happening, guys who are working 2 or 3 jobs that are just trying to make ends meet, being told that they're privileged or being accused of things they did 20 years ago. Like it's a difficult place. And so my wife wakes up one night and she's like, I'm going to build this app. It's going to be called heChange It. It's going to be a place where men can go and they can have a community and they can just bounce things off each other, because many times just the act of bouncing things off each other is the therapy that they need to figure things out.
Sometimes just talking it out, saying something out loud, which a lot of guys sometimes have a hard time doing. Yes. From my experience.
Yes. And listening.
Yeah, you seem like maybe you're more in touch with your feminine side. I know I definitely am. So maybe it's just maybe it's aligning the divine feminine and masculine, something to do with that. For me, really, life comes down to balance.
It is. That's
what the masculine and feminine is.
It's balancing that stuff.
Mm. Were you a Gary Shandling fan at all?
Oh my God, I love Gary Shandling so much. Sometimes I'll watch the comedians in cars getting coffee where it's Jerry and Judd talking about Gary. Like I love the Gary episode, but when it's Jerry Seinfeld and Judd Apatow talking about Gary, that gets me in the heart every single time.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah, he was special to me too.
Did you know him?
No, I didn't know him. I met him a handful of times, usually at Saturday Night Live, actually. He was at the show often. And actually, speaking of that, just because of the timing of when we're doing this, R.I.P. to Tony Inky Mendez.
I can't believe
this week. Sad. I didn't know him well either, but he used to work at Saturday Night Live when I did. And he was very, very nice to a very young intern / production assistant. I mean, he showed me around. He showed me, Wally. Do you know Spike Ferriston and Wally Ferriston?
I know the names. I know
Wally is the cue card guy on Saturday Night Live and on Seth. Down the hall, Seth Meyers. And then Spike Ferriston is his brother, who is a huge car guy, writes for Seinfeld, and he used to be a host as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Tony was a dancer.
He was a Broadway performer, yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Doesn't it make sense now that you know it, though?
100%. Oh yeah, his flamboyance on the show was incredible.
What's your favorite Inky memory?
Well, it was when he would storm off. I mean, he just lose his shit and storm off.
Speak a bunch of Spanish and then just run out of there.
Yeah. I'd laugh every time. Giller put up a post remembering Tony, and it reminded me of. I remembered the moment. I had forgotten about it until I saw it again, and it was a moment where he translated one of Dave's jokes into Spanish.
Yeah.
And there's a little part, Dave screwed the joke up. And that was the whole reason why that was supposed to happen, why he was going to come up and say, oh, maybe it's funnier in Spanish. And then Tony went and he translated the screw up as well. And I thought that was, I'm like, oh man, that's genius that he would actually translate.
He was a performer. He really was a performer. So my favorite would be by far, they did the show in LA 2 different weeks, like 94 and 95, I think. Yeah. One of those times they put Tony on as many different TV shows as an extra as they could. And then they had him come out at the end of the week or maybe when they got back to New York, whatever, they had him come out and then they played the reel of all the different appearances. Absolutely awesome. He was in like Law and Order and like comedy shows and soap operas. It was so funny. So great.
It's funny. I've become friendly with a lot of Dave's former staffers, and I'm ginger around. I've gingerly asked a few times, like, because the night that Dave retired, I was like, from the Late Show, I wished Inky would have been there, and I mean, Todd even had a gag, a cue card gag. There was even a cue card gag in the finale. And I was like, oh man. And every time that I've talked to somebody about it, they have all said, well, it's not really my story to tell or whatever. And every single one of those staff members, it was such a family there. And I envy that too. I wanted to be part of that family. I know as the viewer I was, but that family that was there, every single time I've talked to somebody about Tony, they all just kind of looked at like it's a tragedy that what happened with him.
Yeah. I would agree too. I mean, I didn't know anybody that well, but I do know the parties that are at play, and I feel like I know their personalities well. And it sounds like it was just something that happened. It is a bummer because he was universally loved.
And
I hope he knows that. I hope wherever he is now, I hope that he knows that.
Absolutely.
I read somewhere that somebody asked him after he had been off the show. Somebody asked him something about Dave and he said Dave was the best boss ever. Like that was his only comment. And I was like, that's the relationship I know. Do you know that Tony sort of inherited that job from his partner who had passed away? You know AIDS. That? Of AIDS. Yeah. Okay.
The AIDS.
Interesting story.
These staffers talk about the AIDS epidemic in New York and what it did to people on the show and people who were attached to the show. That was a big moment during the time in late night. I just, the heart that is behind, and Dave does not want people to, like, he doesn't publicize this for the right reasons, I suppose. That was a family there and they treated each other like family, including blow-ups and things like that sometimes happen in families.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever worked on a TV show? I mean, they're all kind of like that. I think that The Late Show was probably much more so than even the average. But even the, when you spend that much time with people on a regular basis, it's almost impossible to not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like even it is like family, the things you do like, the things you don't like, the idiosyncrasies of one another.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked on a lot of shows over the years and some for only a couple months and some for years and years and years. And any of the ones that were years and years and years became a family. You just almost can't not. And for them to be on for as long as they were, I mean, that's like, they have each other's back, man. You want to talk about loyalty.
Yep. I hate that I have to end this, but I have to end it soon because we try and keep it to an hour. But that being said, I'm sure this isn't the last time we're going to talk. I want to bookend the conversation here, and that's how I'm going to end it with that bookend. But before I do, Nicole, and what you're going through with your girl, I certainly have advice or at least food for thought that I would give. We've got people in this audience that are going through, family struggles and they're being the stereotypical man of the family and all that. Do you have any advice for somebody who might be listening to this that's going through some shit in their family, whether it is a medical thing, whether it is a trial like that?
Everybody's, no matter what the situation is, everyone's is different. The only thing I will say is, don't forget to take care of you too. When it comes to Nicole, there's not much we can do for her, but the truth is I'm her sensors, I'm her meters, I'm her temperature gauge, I'm all the things, because her head and her body are kind of screwy now.
Yep.
And it's very easy for me to get worn out and then sometimes get short or fatigued or,
the dominoes start to fall.
The truth is, you just really need to, I guess, across the board, no matter who you are, you need to take care of yourself. And that's not something I ever did when I was younger. And it's not something she ever did and is not even good at doing it now. But taking care of yourself is really the best advice I can give anybody. On the plane, they say, put your oxygen mask on before the person next to you, even if it's your baby.
Yep.
That doesn't seem like it makes sense. You're like, no, get it on the baby. How about if you're not taken care of, you're no good to anybody. It's that simple.
Yep.
So take care of yourself so you can be good for everybody.
I love that advice. And today's podcast has been special because we're talking about being passionate about things. And I think I trailed off and didn't come back to it. And passions are really important. And anybody out there, if there's a passion that you can dive into, in a realistic way, or here's proof, or in an unrealistic way, that right there is a form of taking care of yourself. And I appreciate that message very, very much. I'm going to ask one last question. Clearly, we're past the statute of limitations, at least sort of. This story has been told. It's obviously not the first time you've told it. Has this story and this ending of the story gotten back to Dave that you know of in any way, shape, or form? Or as far as he's concerned, that was a nice kid who I gave one of my jackets to, and I hope he's well, kind of a thing. Like, have you had any interaction since then?
Not with Dave, but Dave has but one guy that he works with. Some people have a whole team of people. Dave has a guy. That guy happens to be an old colleague of Nicole's. So they have been in conversation for probably going on, on and off, probably going on 2 years.
Yep.
COVID, of course, was a big part of that.
Yep.
So, a lot of things haven't. We are actively trying to get Dave here as a guest. It seemed like it was going to happen a while ago, and then COVID happened. There was one trip out where Dave was going to do a couple episodes of My Next Guest, and we really thought it was going to happen, and we didn't have like a hard yes, but it was like it looks good. And then COVID shut everything down, and we've had a pin in everything since then until about a week ago. Now, about a week ago, we reinvigorated this conversation, and now now we're looking into it again.
Okay.
We're looking into it again. I think the fact that Jay has been here now certainly helps our cause. Yeah. I would think.
I can imagine.
Even though it's not really related, just the fact that they're not going to murder me, that kind of thing. Yeah. This nice couple seems to be as nice as they seem to be.
Does Dave know you have his microphone?
Yeah. Well, he knows the whole story, right?
Okay, so he does know that other part of it. Okay. So.
Oh yeah. Well, no, the whole part of this was to see if, it was to try to see if he wanted this back. Now, I don't think he does or will.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we don't still want to have the conversation, and I can get all Chris Farley show with, do you remember when that time I showed up on your porch? And I had that thing and you took it and you used it for a decade. Oh God, I've got so many things. Listen, Jay, you've been very grateful. I'm very grateful that you have been so generous with your time. I can't wait to do this again. I'm glad that we've connected, and Letterman's he's a white whale for me for this show, because you talk about a guy who's gone on a mental wellness journey and has changed his thinking and the wiring in his head over the years. There's a guy who's done it, and I just appreciate very, very much the legacy he's created. If he didn't create his legacy, you and I wouldn't have had this amazing conversation today. Without a doubt.
Yeah. And you, when I told you who we were and what we were about, you expressed, hey, you're doing a good thing. Like it's cool. I'm grateful that we have your approval for this little project that we're doing here. So thank you for that as well.
Oh, I feel that's mutual. I feel the exact same way. Yeah. Thank you for thinking that we're doing something valuable as well. No, that is the goal. In the beginning, it probably was checking some boxes of seeing internally the soul. Can your DNA actually do this job? That was cool and all. But then once we figured out that we actually could, and that it was palatable, it all became about helping and doing things for other people. So I commend you. If you ever need me again, I'm here. And if there's ever anything we can do for you and your show, or you personally, or whatever, whether it's Nicole, me, the show here, just let us know. We love, helping. It's a symbiotic thing. So if there's anything we can do, and if you're ever down here in Los Angeles, please come by and both check it out, but also feel free to be on the show.
I'm a huge hockey fan. The Los Angeles Kings are the team that I love more than any other. I've got actually beside Letterman's microphone, I've got a crown on my back as well. So we do make our way down there, and I appreciate that. I would love that.
For how long have you been a Kings fan?
Since I've got a Marcel Dion jersey on my wall. So since before Gretzky.
Amazing. So you remember Sean Avery?
Who doesn't remember Sean Avery? Yes, absolutely.
Well, he's on our wall up there because the missus worked with him for years and years and years, and we're trying to get him on the show as well.
That'll be a great time.
She worked with him during all of that.
And
that's all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that'd be a great show. Man,
the missus grew up in Rochester, New York, so she grew up playing hockey. They would freeze the backyard and stuff. And she actually played ice hockey for Michigan, for University of Michigan.
Oh my God. Yeah. They got a program there. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, she was the year and the generation of players that got them the program. There was no girls program until then.
Oh, that's amazing.
Isn't that cool? In the varsity anyway.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
God, I love this.
We could go on for days and days and days.
And we could, and hopefully one day we do. Thank you for this. What's the best way? If somebody's going to find Late Night Playset, how do you want them to find you? Do you want them the Apple Store, YouTube? What's the best way for people to find you?
The truth is Google is the best because we don't have the best viewership and we don't have the best anything anywhere, but our SEO seems to be right on top of things. It depends on how you want. If you want to watch the show, it's on YouTube. If you want to listen to the show, it's every podcast platform available. Yep. If you want to, get the hub is latenightplayset.com where you can buy stuff. You can support us if you want to. We're grateful. And all that stuff. So, I mean, it kind of depends. Latenightplayset, I guess.com. But,
all right.
But Google's your friend.
Jay, thank you again so much. And there's not going to be a goodbye here. It's until the next time. So thank you for this.
Thank you, Mike. It was really fun. I had no idea we were going to go where we went. So it was fun.
Me neither. And I'm so pleased.
Emotional journey every time I tell that story.
I love it so much. There it is. Another episode of heCast. The time it gets slippery. This is a little bit longer of one. Thank you to everybody for indulging in me just being able to just go into this because, as you can see, I'm so passionate about this stuff. And success leaves clues, even success during hard times. And Jay has shown what that can look like. And I just appreciate it so much. I appreciate everybody who is already the early adopters of He Changed It. We're going to change the world. That's our goal. We're hell bent on it. If you haven't downloaded the app, download it, get on there, Apple, Google Play. If you like the show, hell, even if you don't like the show, please share it, subscribe to it, get it out there. And that's another episode of heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.